For Huey Campbell, life was simple: a boring job at an electronics store, modest plans, and the girl he loved, Robin. But in a world with superheroes, simplicity is an illusion about to be shattered. As Homelander and Queen Maeve pose for the cameras after stopping a robbery, reality hits Huey at the speed of sound. In the blink of an eye, the speedster A-Train plows through Robin. A-Train blasts right through Robin without slowing down.
Robin!
While Huey's world was falling apart, Annie January's, an idealistic young woman from Iowa, was about to begin. With a pure-hearted speech about wanting to truly save the world, she wins her spot in the Seven, the most powerful superhero team on the planet. Her dream comes true, but reality has a price. Behind the scenes at Seven Tower, the dream turns into a nightmare. The aquatic hero, the deep, corners her, and the fantasy of saving the world is crushed under the weight of a disgusting ultimatum: her career or her body. In shock, she gives in. Across town, Vought International tries to buy Huey's silence with $45,000. He refuses, but his father warns him, "You can't beat these guys." That's when a mysterious man who reeks of trouble and vengeance finds him, Billy Butcher. He reveals the brutal truth. A-Train was laughing about Robin's death. Butcher offers Huey a chance to fight back, a risky plan to plant a bug in the heart of Vought. The plan works, but the victory is short-lived. Butcher abandons him, and Huey is ambushed by the invisible hero, Translucent. A brutal beatdown seems inevitable until Butcher returns. In an act of desperation, Huey causes a short circuit that takes down the indestructible hero. It's then that the final truth is revealed. Butcher isn't with the government, and now the two of them have one of the most powerful superheroes in the world unconscious in their trunk. The tables have turned, and they have no idea how to survive it. The problem with kidnapping a superhero? They wake up. With sirens approaching and a conscious Translucent in the trunk, panic sets in. Butcher takes his hostage to the only man crazy enough to help, Frenchie, a criminal with more of a knack for chaos than common sense. The problem? Translucent has a tracker. The clock is ticking. Meanwhile, at Vought, Madeline Stillwell notices one of her assets is missing and orders a quiet search, but she has bigger problems. Homelander, to protect her from blackmail involving a secret called Compound V, secretly orchestrates a plane accident that kills the mayor of Baltimore. A subtle reminder that for Homelander, human lives are just collateral damage. Far away, Starlight has her first patrol, a PR stunt alongside her aggressor, the Deep. She confronts him, making it clear that the game has changed. She won't be a victim anymore.
You ever touch me again?
Her disillusionment with the facade of heroism only grows. Back at the hideout, Butcher's crew faces a dilemma. How do you kill a man with diamond-hard skin? Frenchie's answer is as brilliant as it is sick. If you can't pierce it from the outside, you attack from the inside. A C4 bomb, straight up his rectum. At the exact moment of detonation, the worst happens. Homelander arrives, his X-ray vision sweeping the building. Panic, desperation. Frenchie triggers a plan B, an explosion in another part of the city to create a distraction. It works. Homelander leaves. Cornered, Translucent tries one last mind game with Huey, promising he can just walk away. But Huey doesn't see a hero. He sees Robin's ghost, and with a click, he presses the button. Translucent is gone, but the blood is now on Huey's hands, and there's no going back. How do you clean up the remains of an exploded superhero? That's the question nobody ever teaches you how to answer. With a literally bloody mess on their hands, Butcher recruits an old ghost from his crew, Mother's Milk, a man who swore he had left this crazy life behind. But the news that they took down one of the Seven is a call he can't ignore. Meanwhile, a genuine act of heroism by Starlight, saving a woman from an assault, goes viral. Vought wastes no time and turns her bravery into a sexualized product, forcing her into a skimpy costume under threat of being fired. With each passing day, the line between hero and puppet grows thinner. The boy's next target is A-Train, and the bait is his secret girlfriend, Popclaw. Huey infiltrates her apartment, and the hidden camera captures the confession that changes everything. A-Train was high on Compound V, a steroid for soups. Robin's death wasn't an accident, it was the result of an addiction. The plan now is to steal the drug during the speedster's big race. Huey, in disguise, even gets Starlight's number, a spark of normality amidst the chaos. But the mission fails. The Compound V isn't there. However, the tables turn again. Publicly dumped by A-Train after the race, Popclaw, in a drug-fueled rage, accidentally kills her landlord. Butcher sees the perfect opportunity. He now has leverage to blackmail her and force her to be his informant. Little do they know that across town, Translucent's remains are found.
Whoever it was,
They just declared war.
As the boys discover Vought's secret weapon, Homelander declares war on their invisible hunters. The hunt has begun. Armed with the new information about Compound V, Billy Butcher baits the CIA. Popclaw's lead takes the team to a shocking discovery. A mysterious pharaoh woman locked in a cage in a restaurant basement. Ignoring orders, Frenchie frees her, and all hell breaks loose before she escapes into the shadows. Far away in the skies, the charade of heroism reaches its darkest peak. Homelander and Queen Maeve intercept the hijacked flight, but after their victory, a fatal mistake by Homelander dooms the plane. With no way to save everyone, his choice is brutal and clear. Abandon hundreds of passengers to their deaths to protect the Seven's perfect image. The image is worth more than innocent lives. May this force to be an accomplice to the crime. To move forward, Butcher uses the only connection they have to the Seven, Huey. During a meeting with Starlight, he plants a bug, but guilt gnaws at him when he discovers that Translucent, whom he helped kill, had a son. Meanwhile, Homelander ties up loose ends, ordering A-Train to silence Popclaw forever by staging an overdose. The team tracks the mysterious woman, and Frenchie tries to make a connection, but A-Train gets there first. In a desperate maneuver, they use the crowd as a shield and manage to capture her. At the plane crash site, the lie is broadcast to the world. Homelander and Maeve, their faces marked by rehearsed grief, blame bureaucracy for the tragedy, using the ashes of innocence to sell the government on the need for soups in the military.
If they let us into the military, then this will never happen again. That is my solemn promise to you.
They didn't just get away with mass murder, they turned it into a marketing opportunity. With a super terrorist in their basement, the team is more lost than ever. While Frenchie tries and fails to connect with the silent prisoner, Vought organizes its next big show, the Believe Expo, a Christian event led by the elastic hero Ezekiel. Intel suggests he is the key to Compound V's distribution. The plan? Huey will accompany Starlight to the event and use a compromising video to blackmail Ezekiel. Far from the stage, Homelander reveals another layer of his psychopathy. Feeling ignored by Madeline Stillwell, his obsession with her becomes dangerously unstable. He isn't an employee, he's a predator who sees her as his property. At the expo, Butcher's plan works. Cornered, Ezekiel sings, Compound V is being shipped to hospitals across the country, disguised as baby vaccines. The truth is darker than they imagined. Heroes aren't born, they're made. On the main stage, Starlight throws the script in the trash. In a fiery speech, she calls out Vaught's hypocrisy and reveals she was a victim of assault, dropping a bombshell right in the middle of the company's marketing spectacle. Following the lead, Butcher and Mother's Milk confirm the terrifying truth in a neonatal ward. At the same time, Frenchie discovers he's being hunted by Black Noir. He decides to free the prisoner, but it's too late. The attack is swift and silent, but just when all seems lost, and it truly is, she tries to fight back, but Black Noir shows no mercy. In the end, she's left there, barely clinging to life. Now they know everything. Vought doesn't find heroes, it creates them in labs, and the living proof is in their basement, a super terrorist named Kimiko. While Vought tries to contain Starlight's crisis with a pathetic reality show, she refuses to be the company's puppet. She confronts Stillwell and gives her an ultimatum. Either her abuser is punished, or she exposes everything. For damage control, Vought sacrifices the Deep, forcing him into a humiliating public apology before exiling him to Ohio. To understand Kimiko, Frenchie convinces the team to find Mesmer, a washed-up telepath that Vought discarded, but Butcher, suspicious of Huey's romance with Starlight, drags him to a support group for victims of soups, a cruel lesson to remind him what happens when you get too close to the enemy, and an echo of his own wife Becca's disappearance. Mesmer reads Kiniko's mind, and the truth is tragic. She and her brother were abducted and forced to become child soldiers, before Vought used her as a guinea pig to create the perfect supervillain.
Killed her parents, kidnapped her and her brother, forced them to be soldiers.
Justifying the need for their military heroes. But revenge has a price. Desperate to get back in the spotlight, Mesmer betrays the team, delivering photos of their faces directly to Homelander. Holding all the cards, Butcher takes the dossier to the CIA. Susan Raynor agrees to investigate Vought, but she freezes when she hears Homelander's name. He's too powerful, untouchable. Back at the safe house, Butcher, consumed by his own hatred, lies to the only family he has left. He tells them the CIA rejected the deal. From now on, there are no rules. miles, and the war against Vought has just become personal. It all started at a Christmas party. A painful flashback shows Billy Butcher and his wife Becca happy until Homelander enters the scene. His interest in her is immediate, predatory. It was there, with a smile and a job offer, that the seed of tragedy was planted. In the present, Huey and Annie's connection deepens, but the weight of his secrets begins to crack her trust. Meanwhile, the Deep's exile in Ohio proves to be a purgatory of humiliation, and A-Train's addiction to Compound V is destroying his body. He knows he's dying, but he can't stop. The tension explodes when Homelander gathers the Seven. With a sadistic smile, he exposes everything. Starlight's boyfriend is one of Translucent's killers. He calls her a traitor, but in a shocking turn, Queen Maeve defends her, painting her as a lovesick fool, not a conspirator. The lie saves her, for now.
The only thing she's guilty of is being fucking stupid.
At the hideout, Huey tries to leave, confessing that he loves Annie, but the drama is cut short by a call. A-Train has his father. It's a trap. The boys' ambush turns into a brutal confrontation, and Starlight arrives to save Huey, only to be gravely injured by an A-Train fueled by vengeance and Compound V. The fight ends with the speedster on the ground, the victim of a massive heart attack. Driven by suspicion, Homelander confronts his creator, Dr. Vogelbaum, and discovers the earth-shattering truth. Becca didn't die. She had his son, but the birth was traumatic and they both died, or so he was told. At the same time, the boys are surrounded, cornered. Butcher makes one last desperate call to the CIA. Help is on the way, but with a condition that could break his soul. Homelander is off limits. Vought has won. With A-Train in a coma and the boys in the crosshairs, Homelander uses the terrorist threat he himself created to become a war hero, securing the military contract he so desperately wanted. The message is clear. The world needs them, and Madeline Stillwell uses this victory to force the government's hand. For Butcher, the news is a gut punch. The deal with the CIA is off. Vought is now part of national security, and they are officially the most wanted men in the country. Raynor's advice is simple: run. Mother's Milk and Frenchie prepare to disappear, but Butcher, blinded by revenge, abandons them to their fate, prioritizing his final score. Disgusted by his selfishness, Huey finally leaves him. Meanwhile, Annie confronts her mother and discovers the lie that has defined her life. She wasn't born with powers. She was injected with Compound V as a baby. Now alone, Huey turns to the only person he can trust, Annie. Together, they devise a plan to rescue their friends. Homelander, in turn, confronts Stillwell. He knows she lied about his son. He confesses to creating the soup terrorists, not as a hero, but as a bored god playing with mortals. Huey turns himself in to free his team from the inside, and with the help of Starlight's powers, they blast their way to freedom. But Butcher is already at his endgame. He straps Stillwell with explosives, waiting for Homelander, the final showdown. He believes he's found the hero's only weakness, but he's wrong. By forcing Stillwell to admit she's afraid of him, Homelander proves he cares for no one. Butcher's leverage is gone. He wakes up on a perfect suburban lawn. Before him, an impossible sight. Becca is alive, and next to her, a young boy. Homelander appears with a sick smile, revealing the final truth. Turns out, I'm the dad. The game isn't over. It has just reached a nightmarish level that no one could have predicted. The tables have turned. With Butcher missing, the boys are no longer the hunters. They're the hunted. Branded as international terrorists, they become Vaught's #1 targets, which is now closing a golden deal with the US government. Vought, the master of manipulation, doesn't even blink. They turn Translucent's death into a national spectacle, with Homelander shedding crocodile tears and inventing a supervillain to take the blame. Meanwhile, the boys are at rock bottom, hiding in the filthy basement of one of Frenchie's contacts. Paranoia is eating away at Huey, and Mother's Milk can only think about getting back to his family. Trust is in tatters. Still, risking everything, Huey sets up a clandestine meeting with Annie on the subway. The danger is palpable, but something in her still wants to help. She agrees to investigate the only lead they have, a soup terrorist who entered the country illegally. In another part of the city, the Deep, humiliated and imprisoned, receives a bizarre offer of redemption from the hero Eagle the Archer, who invites him to the enigmatic Church of the Collective. Annie's lead takes Frenchie to a hideout, but when Kimiko confronts the supposed terrorist, her world collapses. She finds an origami, revealing it was from her brother, who had also been a forced victim of Compound V. In the Seventh Tower, Homelander, with no Madeline Stillwell to control him, shows his true colors. He humiliates the new boss Ashley and brutally maims Blindspot, a blind hero sending a clear message. Only he decides who rises and who falls, but his reign is challenged the very next second. Stormfront, a charismatic, social media savvy heroine, bursts onto the scene and announces she's the newest member of the Seven, a hire made by Edgar behind Homelander's back.
Wow,
Well, Stormfront.
The final blow comes when the boys meet with their only ally, Susan Raynor. She starts putting the pieces together, talking about a coup inside Vought. But before she can finish the sentence, she drops dead right in front of everyone. The horror is absolute. They are alone. Enraged, Homelander confronts Stan Edgar, who, with chilling calm, verbally destroys him. Edgar reveals that Vought was born from Nazi ideals and that they aren't a superhero company, but a pharmaceutical giant. Compound V is our most valuable asset, he says, not you. Homelander is left reeling, realizing he was never in control. With the team in shot from Raynor's death, hopeless and without allies, a shadow appears in the doorway of the hideout, and a familiar voice breaks the silence. Daddy's home, but the reception isn't the warmest. Billy Butcher, waking up in the middle of nowhere in a roadside diner, finally reunites with his team, only to be confronted by the fury of those he abandoned. The tension is palpable, but Butcher, a master of manipulation, takes control with a promise. They will hunt down the super terrorist who has entered the country. Far away, Homelander is in his own personal hell, a perfect Vought suburb where Becca is raising their son, Ryan, in total isolation. Homelander's disappointment is visible when he realizes the boy has no powers. He decides to stay, determined to awaken his son's potential, turning Becca's life into a nightmare of constant threat. Back at the tower, Vought's new star, Stormfront, shows what she's made of. In the middle of a press conference, she throws the script away and captivates the audience with her rebellious, tell-it-like-it-is attitude. At the same moment, A-Train returns, apparently recovered, and makes a veiled threat to Starlight, making it clear he knows she was the one who helped Huey. The pressure on her is immense.
How does everyone feel about you helping your traitor fucking boyfriend escape?
Desperate, Starlight manages to get a sample of Compound V, but the exchange is spotted by two dangerous pairs of eyes, Stormfront and A-Train himself. Meanwhile, in secret, Queen Maeve meets with her ex, Elena, and finally reveals the truth behind her distance, a paralyzing fear of Homelander, and what he would do if he discovered their relationship. At Susan Raynor's funeral, Butcher corners Grace Mallory. He convinces her to give him the terrorist's location in exchange for a chance to clear their names. With the information in hand, the team raids a hideout and comes face to face with their target, Kenji, Kimiko's long-lost brother. The reunion is brutally interrupted when Butcher reveals his play. He isn't there for justice. He made a deal, Kenji's head in exchange for Becca's location. The betrayal fractures the team, but faced with the raw truth, they decide to help him. Kenji, now radicalized, tries to convince Kimiko to join him. She refuses, and he attacks her, forcing the team to subdue him, proving that sometimes blood isn't thicker than hate. Butcher's betrayal finally comes at a price. Aboard a boat with Kenji tied up, tensions explode, and Huey, in a fit of rage, punches their leader in the face. The plan is to hand the super terrorist over to Mallory, but Kimiko still tries to reach her brother, begging him to give up his revenge. It's a futile attempt. Meanwhile, Homelander takes his fatherly training to a level of psychotic cruelty. He shoves Ryan, his son, off a roof, trying to force him to fly. The boy just falls. When Becca confronts him, Homelander's rage is so intense that something inside Ryan awakens. He shoves him back with a devastating telekinetic force. Homelander is ecstatic, but the result is the opposite of what he wanted. Ryan, terrified by what he did and by who his father is, rejects him completely. The time bomb Starlight planted finally goes off. The news about Compound V leaks to the press, and Vought's stock plummets. The boys' escape by sea is intercepted in the most bizarre way possible. The Deep emerges, using a giant whale to block their path, but he underestimated Billy Butcher's brutality. Without hesitation, Butcher speeds up the boat and drives it straight through the animal in a surreal scene of carnage, escaping through a sewer drain. The trauma is too much for Huey, who refuses to go on.
Okay, you guys go ahead. I'm good.
Hey, what?
Mother's Milk stays behind with him, but the truce is short-lived. In the tunnels, Homelander corners them. He orders Starlight to execute Huey to prove her loyalty. But just when all seems lost, Butcher reappears. In the confusion, Kenji escapes, only to be hunted down by Stormfront. The chase ends in a massacre. Stormfront reveals her true sadistic nature, slaughtering dozens of innocent civilians before finishing off Kenji. Homelander arrives, furious, not because of the deaths, but because she stole his spotlight. The Vought machine kicks kicks into gear. In a matter of hours, Kenji is framed as the monster responsible for everything, and Stormfront is crowned America's new hero. Stan Edgar uses the tragedy to sell more superheroes to the government. Little did they know that the nation's new savior was, in fact, evil in its purest form. While the world applauds its new hero, Kimiko is consumed by a silent grief. Homelander, for his part, dives headfirst into insanity, using a shape-shifting soup to recreate his sick fantasies with a Madeline Stillwell doppelganger. Grace Mallory upholds her end of the deal and gives Butcher Becca's location, along with an intriguing new lead, the name of a former superhero called Liberty. With his prize in hand, Butcher does what he always does. He abandons the team once again to go after Becca alone. Mother's Milk, Huey, and Frenchie don't give up. They head to North Carolina to find out who Liberty was, and Starlight, feeling the walls of Seven Tower closing in, joins them. At Vought, corporate cruelty reaches its peak when Homelander and Ashley fire A-Train, discarding him as a liability to the company's image. The investigation leads the group to Valerie, a woman haunted by a terrible memory, the day Liberty murdered her brother back in the 1970s. When they show her a current photo of Stormfront, everyone's jaw drops.
That's her. Right there. That's Liberty.
Valerie identifies her instantly. There's no doubt, Stormfront isn't a new hero. She is Liberty, an old, violent, and racist monster operating under a new identity. At the same time, Butcher manages to infiltrate the Vought compound and finally reunites with Becca. The plan is to escape with Ryan, but at the last second, Becca backs out. She looks at Butcher and sees the hatred he feels for the boy. She knows he would never accept him. Heartbroken, she forces him to leave, choosing to protect her son from the man she loves. Back at the tower, Homelander confronts Stormfront for stealing his spotlight, but instead of a fight, he finds seduction. She poisons him with a vision of power, explaining that fear and hatred are far more effective weapons than public adoration. An unholy alliance begins to form. At the height of his crisis, Homelander kills the Stillwell shapeshifter, declaring that he doesn't need anyone. Little did he know, he was about to team up with someone even worse. On the set of a Vought movie, Homelander's cruelty reaches a new level. He corners Queen Maeve, using her secret relationship with Elena as his newest tool for psychological torture. The conversation is cut short by an unprecedented crisis. A video of Homelander killing a civilian has gone viral, and his popularity has plummeted overnight. As Vought gags him, Stormfront approaches with a smile and an offer. She can fix this. Far from the chaos, Billy Butcher calls Huey with a blatant lie. He's found Becca and is retiring, but the sound of a dog's squeaky toy in the background gives the game away. Suspicious, Huey convinces the team to go after him. They find him at his aunt's house, where Butcher finally breaks down and admits the truth. Becca rejected him because of her son. The moment of vulnerability is shattered by the silent and deadly arrival of Black Noir. Cornered, Butcher rigs a makeshift bomb, ready to sacrifice himself to give the others a chance. But Huey refuses to watch. He confronts Butcher's self-pity, forcing him to fight. Backed into a corner, Butcher makes the only play he has left. He calls Stan Edgar. The blackmail is direct. He has photos of Homelander's secret son. In exchange for his silence, Vought calls off the attack. Edgar, pragmatic as ever, agrees. Black Noir stands down. Meanwhile, the Cold War in the Seven Tower heats up. Starlight confronts Stormfront, revealing she knows her true identity as Liberty.
Well, how do you think the world will feel when I tell him that you used to be Liberty?
Stormfront strikes back, making it clear she knows it was Starlight who leaked Compound V. They're locked in a stalemate of mutually assured destruction. At the same time, Vought tries to turn Maeve and Elena into a product, but Maeve refuses, promising Elena they'll take down Homelander once and for all. The episode ends with Stormfront's strategy working terrifyingly well. Using memes, fake news, and hate speech disguised as patriotism, she not only saves Homelander's image, but turns him into a martyr. His popularity skyrockets. The alliance between the two is finally sealed, not with a handshake, but with a display of violent power and disturbing intimacy. The monster has found his queen. The unholy alliance is official. Homelander and Stormfront are now Vought's power couple, kicking off their reign with the brutal execution of a common thief and a press tour that makes the boys' stomachs turn. Desperate, Starlight, now free of her tracker, delivers a crucial lead. Hacked emails from Stormfront mention the Sage Grove Center, a psychiatric hospital. The team has a new target, and Butcher insists Starlight come along as bait. Meanwhile, the power dynamics shift on other fronts. The Deep recovers the phone with the Flight 37 video, giving Maeve the weapons she needed to destroy Homelander. Elsewhere, A-Train, fired and humiliated, is approached by the Church of the Collective with the promise of a way back into the Seven. At Sage Grove, the truth is darker than they imagined. Frenchie, Mother's Milk, and Kimiko infiltrate and discover Vought's plan to stabilize Compound V so it works on adults adults, creating an army of soups, and the orderly overseeing it all is a figure from the past, Lamplighter. The mission goes from bad to worse when a patient with telekinetic powers, Cindy, escapes and frees everyone else, plunging the hospital into absolute chaos. Outside, one of the escapees attacks the group, severely injuring Huey. Drained of her powers, Starlight and a reluctant Butcher are forced to carjack a vehicle to save the kid's life. Trapped in the middle of the riot, Lamplighter confesses the truth to Frenchie about the death of Mallory's grandchildren, a terrible accident he never wanted.
I didn't know that you were gonna be in that bed. You were supposed to be your boss.
In return, Frenchie reveals his own ghost. The reason he didn't stop the attack was because he was tending to a friend who had overdosed. After escaping with Lamplighter, they hand him over to Mallory, who sees him as the perfect witness to expose Vought before Congress. But the biggest revelation of all was yet to come. Homelander finally confronts Stormfront about her lies, and she, without holding back, reveals the complete, terrifying truth. Her name isn't Stormfront. She was born in 1919. She was the wife of Frederick Vought, the company's Nazi founder, and her ultimate goal isn't fame or power. It's to create an army of pure-blooded superhumans to lead a global race war, with Homelander as their Führer. The enemy wasn't just corrupt, they were evil incarnate. Stormfront's propaganda was a poison, and it was spreading through the veins of America, fueling a xenophobic panic against super terrorists that only existed in her imagination. But Grace Mallory and the boys had a silver bullet to annihilate this narrative: Lamplighter's testimony at a congressional hearing. It was the perfect play, checkmate, until the board was flipped. During an innocent visit, Starlight's mother unwittingly sent up a flare for Vought, handing her own daughter over on a silver platter. Meanwhile, Huey had one job: babysit a broken superhero. But how do you watch over the darkness in a man's soul? Consumed by despair, Lamplighter breaks into Vought Tower and sets himself on fire in front of his own statue. The key witness was now ashes. Plan A was dead. Desperate, Butcher moves on to Plan B, which looked more like a dive into hell. He corners Dr. Vogelbaum, the Frankenstein who created Homelander.
You're a dough.
And coerces him into testifying under the coldest of threats, his family's safety. Far from the chaos, Homelander and Stormfront take Ryan on a bizarre retreat, a sick effort to forge an Aryan family and erase any trace of Becca from the boy. Back at the tower, a light emerges in the darkness. Starlight is rescued by the most unlikely ally of all, Queen Maeve, who neutralizes Black Noir and clears a path for her and her mother to escape. The climax approaches. The congressional hearing begins. Dr. Vogelbaum approaches the microphone, ready to expose decades of lies. The world holds its breath. At the very moment he opens his mouth to speak, no sound comes out. Then he explodes, and panic erupts. Seconds later, others begin to explode as well, in a full-blown scene of horror and terror. Watching the live broadcast, the boys' jaws hit the floor. Their plan hadn't just failed. It was obliterated by an unseen enemy, a ghost who had just declared war without showing its face. In the wake of the massacre in Congress, Vought plays its final card, marketing Compound V, as the only cure for the fear they themselves created. Congresswoman Victoria Newman, one of the few survivors, knows it's a scam, but without proof, her hands are tied. Starlight, for her part, cuts her last tie to the past, sending her mother to a safe place. In the hideout, Butcher's patience has run out. It's time for a frontal assault on the Seven. But Huey, still clinging to hope, believes there's another way, a path that doesn't end in total defeat. He and Starlight go to Queen Maeve, begging her to be the voice the world needs to hear. But the Queen is exhausted, broken by the fight, convinced that Homelander is a force of nature that cannot be stopped. The team's mission, however, is hijacked by a new desperation. Becca shows up at the hideout in a panic. Homelander and Stormfront have taken Ryan. Butcher's promise to his wife becomes his sole obsession. He makes a deal with the devil, a secret agreement with Stan Edgar. He delivers Ryan to Vought, and Edgar will get Becca back for him. But the game is turned by an unexpected source. A-Train, humiliated and kicked out of the Seven, leaks Huey the very weapon they needed, a dossier unearthing Stormfront's Nazi past. While the super couple tries to poison Ryan's mind with their hateful ideology, the boys leak the documents. The truth explodes across global media, creating the perfect chaos for a rescue. Stormfront intercepts them, and the battle is savage. The women unite, Starlight, Kiniko, and Maeve, in a brutal, coordinated attack.
Girls do get it done.
but the Nazi breaks free and focuses on her weakest target, Becca. Seeing his mother in danger, something inside Ryan snaps. A cry of rage and love unleashes his powers for the first time, incinerating Stormfront, but hitting Becca with fatal collateral damage. Homelander arrives to find his lover mutilated and his wife dying. Before he can take Ryan, Maeve confronts him, pulling the trigger on her final blackmail, the plane video. Let them go, or the world will see the monster you are. Vought, in damage control mode, pins all the blame on Stormfront. Compound V is shelved, Starlight is reinstated as a hero, and A-Train gets his spot back, while the Deep is kicked to the curb once again. With the charges dropped, the team disbands. Butcher fulfills his promise to Becca, placing Ryan in Grace Mallory's care, and Huey, seeking to fight the right way, takes a job with Victoria Newman. He had no idea that the woman he saw as the solution was, in fact, a cold-blooded killer. The real monster was right in front of him, and she had just offered him a job. A year passes. The dust has settled, but the game board has been completely redrawn. Huey now wears a suit and a badge, working for the Bureau of Superhuman Affairs, and overseeing Billy Butcher's new mission, hunting down problem soups, now with the government's blessing. The boys are on a leash, and Huey's holding it, creating instant friction between protocol and brutality. Huey's life seems stable, but a shadow from his boss's past, Congresswoman Newman, appears, calling her Nadia, and mentioning a sinister place called Red River. Butcher, haunted by the promise he made to a dead woman, keeps a calculated distance from Ryan. Mother's Milk desperately tries to return to a normal life, but his OCD betrays him, a constant reminder that the trauma left by Soups is a stain that won't wash out. Behind the scenes, Stan Edgar reveals his true game. He wants to pivot Vought out of the superhero business and turn it into a pharmaceutical giant with a revolutionary new product, Temporary Compound V.
Because your soldiers will only be super temporarily.
Meanwhile, Queen Maeve, obsessed with wiping Homelander off the face of the earth, gives Butcher what could be the key, the legend of a mysterious weapon that killed the all-powerful Soldier Boy. To find it, Butcher needs to hunt down the ghosts of Soldier Boy's old team, Payback. As a bonus, Maeve gives him a few doses of Tempa V, an insurance policy. At Vought Tower, Edgar moves his pieces, promoting Starlight to co-captain of the Seven, using her popularity as a leash for his most unstable asset. Newman's peace is shattered when her childhood friend Tony turns up dead. In a panic, she makes a mysterious call, asking for help. It's then that the final truth comes to light. Nadia isn't just a name from the past. She is Stan Edgar's adopted daughter. The Soup Hunter was the ultimate villain's secret weapon all along. The hunt for the weapon that killed a legend has begun, forcing the team to reluctantly reunite. Frenchie and Kimiko go after the Crimson Countess at a Vought-themed amusement park, but the mission turns into a disaster, and the ex-heroine escapes. Meanwhile, Butcher corners another member of Payback, Gunpowder, who, after a bit of persuasion, reveals a bombshell. Soldier Boy's last mission was a CIA operation in Nicaragua in 1984, overseen by none other than Grace Mallory. Determined to unmask Newman, Huey infiltrates Red River, the orphanage for superpowered children. What he finds is irrefutable proof. Files that not only confirmed Newman as Nadia, but also reveal that Stan Edgar personally adopted her. She was never his adversary. She was always his pawn. At Vought Tower, the Cold War between the co-captains heats up. Homelander attempts a public humiliation, but Edgar intervenes, making it clear that Starlight's approval ratings have made her, for the moment, more powerful than him.
But hey, it's your party. You can cry if you want to.
The pressure on Homelander reaches a boiling point. During his televised birthday rescue, he comes across a woman standing on the edge of the building. Using reverse psychology, he adds fuel to the fire. The final breakdown happens live on his TV special. Provoked by a protester, he goes off script, exploding into a furious speech, declaring himself a god above humans. And to everyone's horror, the crowd roars in approval. Cornered and beaten by Gunpowder, Butcher makes the decision that might cost him his soul. He injects the temporary compound V. With his eyes glowing and power coursing through his veins, he mercilessly hunts down and executes Gunpowder. Seeing there's no escaping the war, Mother's Milk rejoins Butcher. At the same time, Huey, with his world collapsing around him, calls Butcher and admits the defeat of his ideals. We have to do it your way. The team was back, but this time, they were willing to become monsters to hunt monsters. A flashback takes us to a young Starlight with a forced smile and teary eyes, being pushed by her mother onto the stage of a beauty pageant pageant, a doll for the public's delight. In the present, history repeats itself, but on a terrifying scale. After his hate speech, Homelander's popularity explodes among white men in the Midwest, and his couple rating with Starlight hits a record high 98%. He has turned her into his trophy. Back at the hideout, Huey returns, and to avoid a run-in with the boss he now knows is a murderer, he asks Kiniko for a macabre favor: break my arm. At Vought, Starlight tries to exercise her newfound authority as co-captain, but her choices are dismissed in favor of marketing. Far away, Frenchie's past comes back to haunt him in the form of Sherry, his former partner, who is now in debt to the dangerous Russian mobster, Little Nina. Meanwhile, Butcher and Mother's Milk confront Grace Mallory, who finally opens the coffin of secrets about Soldier Boy's last mission. It wasn't a heroic operation. It was a front for trafficking drugs to the Contras, a test to see if Soups could be soldiers. The mission ended in tragedy when Russian forces attacked, supposedly killing Soldier Boy with a super weapon before stealing his body. Back at the tower, Homelander corners Starlight. She tries to play her trump card, the video from Flight 37, but he laughs in her face. He dares her to leak it, revealing he has nothing left to lose. If he goes down, he'll take the whole world down with him.
Because I am the Homelander.
Terrified, she calls Huey, who tells her about the weapon hunt in Russia and begs her to hang in there. But the mission takes its toll on Butcher. He says goodbye to Ryan, not with a hug, but with calculated cruelty, blaming the boy for Becca's death to sever the last tie that bound him to his humanity. Butcher's plan is simple: go to Russia, and to do so, he uses Frenchie to get in touch with Little Nina. The night ends with a media spectacle. Supersonic is announced as a member of the Seven, but Homelander shocks everyone by bringing the Deep back instead. Then, with a predatory smile, he makes the final announcement: live to millions. He and Starlight are in love. In an instant, he traps her in the perfect charade, a televised golden cage. Trapped in the spotlight, smiling for the cameras, Starlight was now a prisoner in her own fairy tale, and the monster had just declared himself Prince Charming. Living a lie comes at a price, and for Starlight, the bill is coming due. Forced to smile for the cameras alongside Homelander, her life becomes a private hell when the hero decides to pay a surprise visit to her apartment, with Huey hiding just a few feet away, holding his breath. But while Starlight plays this deadly chess match, a corporate war explodes at Vought. Stan Edgar, the puppet master, tries to use Victoria Newman to corner Homelander, but little did he know the game had already been turned. Homelander not only neutralizes the threat, but forges an unholy alliance with Newman, delivering the head of his own adoptive father on a platter. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the boys delve into the ice of Russia in search of the only weapon that can make a god bleed: the Contact, the infamous Little Nina. The information has a price, as always: an assassination, and the task falls to Kiniko, forcing her to dive back into the darkness she fought so hard to leave behind. Back in New York, a bombshell revelation: Queen Maeve confesses to Starlight that she is the mastermind behind the hunt in Russia and has been training in secret for the day of reckoning with Homelander. Inspired, Starlight plays her own hand.
It's why I'm training. Or haven't had a drink in 4 awful shit-eating months.
Recruiting Supersonic to the rebellion. She just didn't count on one thing: the loyalty of A-Train, publicly humiliated by the Deep and ignored by Homelander, would be the piece that brought the whole house of cards down. Homelander's plan comes to fruition in a devastating press conference. Newman exposes Stan Edgar's crimes, and the King of Vought falls. With the throne vacant, Homelander finally seizes total control. Knowing that time is running out, Huey makes a desperate decision. He steals a dose of Temp V, determined to no longer be the guy who needs saving. In Russia, the team invades the lab and, cornered, Butcher and Huey inject the serum, feeling the power burn through their veins. But they don't find a weapon. They find a living legend: Soldier Boy. Disoriented, he fires a blast of pure energy from his chest. The beam hits Kimiko, and in an instant, her healing powers vanish. And as chaos erupts in Russia, back in New York, betrayal takes its price. A-Train tells Homelander everything. To send his message, Homelander confronts Starlight, but not with words. He does it with Supersonic's blood. The dust has barely settled from Russia, and the boys are already in pieces. Mother's Milk explodes at Butcher, accusing him of becoming the very monster they hunt by using Temp V. The team, the family, is fractured. In New York, the new King of Vought, Homelander, consolidates his power with a quiet terror, promoting the Deep and making it clear who's in charge. It is in this climate that Starlight finds Huey Huey and tells him the devastating news about Supersonic, only to be dealt another blow. Huey confesses that he used V2. The trust between them shatters. Far away, Kimiko wakes up in the hospital and, to Frenchie's shock, she smiles. Powerless. For the first time in years, she feels free. But peace is a luxury no one has. Soldier Boy, the ghost of Vought's past, resurfaces in New York and leaves a trail of 19 bodies in a massive explosion. An old Vought legend reveals the pattern. He's hunting his old team, Payback, one by one, and next on the list is his ex-girlfriend, the Crimson Countess. The paranoia in Vought Tower reaches its peak. Homelander discovers Maeve's conspiracy and kicks her out of the Seven, forcing Ashley to come up with a rehab story for the media. At the same time, A-Train's plan for Blue Hawk to apologize to the community explodes into violence, leaving his brother permanently paralyzed. And as if that weren't enough, Frenchie is dragged back into the clutches of little Nina. With the world falling apart, the boys and Starlight team up for one last desperate play to ambush Soldier Boy. But Butcher has other plans. The goal was never to stop Soldier Boy, it was to team up with him to kill Homelander. To ensure no one interferes, he drugs Mother's milk. Seeing Starlight in danger, Huey makes his choice. He takes another dose of Temp V, embracing the power to protect her. When Starlight arrives and sees what he's done, her heart breaks. She confronts him, horrified, but Huey's decision is made. He turns his back on the woman he loves and walks towards the abyss alongside Butcher, leaving a wound that may never heal. The ghost of Vought's past is alive and well, and the video of the Manhattan explosion reaches Homelander's screen. As Ashley panics, Vought's new CEO takes control with chilling composure. He will personally hunt down and kill Soldier Boy, and the story will be buried. His first order is for Black Noir, the only one who knows Payback's secrets, but Noir has vanished. Across town, a deal with the devil is struck. Butcher and Huey find a Soldier Boy lost in the 21st century and make him an offer. They help him eliminate Payback, and in return, he helps them kill Homelander. As the unholy alliance forms, Mother's Milk, driven by a devastating personal vendetta, sets off to hunt Soldier Boy alone, revealing to Starlight that the legendary hero murdered his family. All roads lead to a single explosive destination.
All I know is that if I didn't check the burners 3 times a night, Soldier Boy would come back and kill the rest of us.
A house in Vermont where the next targets, the TNT twins, are located. What they find isn't a hideout, it's Herogasm, the legendary annual superhero party. The chaos is the perfect stage for a settling of scores. Huey, with the powers of Temp V coursing through his veins, finally confronts A-Train for Robin's death, and then all hell truly breaks loose. Homelander descends from the heavens. Mother's Milk, blinded by vengeance, attacks Soldier Boy and is knocked out. In a showdown that shakes the very foundation of the house, Butcher, Huey, and Soldier Boy join forces against the man who thought himself a god. For the first time in history, the Invincible One bleeds. Wounded and shocked, Homelander retreats. In the midst of the carnage, A-Train finally gets his revenge, killing Blue Hawk. Far away, Frenchie and Kimiko manage to escape little Nina, but the final blow doesn't come from a punch. It comes from a cell phone. Fed up with the lies, Starlight hits broadcast and burns Vought and Homelander to the ground in a live stream to the entire world. Starlight is dead, and Annie January has just declared war. Annie January's live stream has set the world on fire. Vought, in full damage control mode, strikes back with the force of a hurricane, painting her as a terrorist and a child trafficker in the media, while Homelander sells himself as the nation's only salvation. Hiding out at the Legends house, a fossil from Vought's golden age, the truth about their new ally comes to light. Huey discovers that Soldier Boy was never a war hero. He was a propaganda fraud, an unstable weapon responsible for countless atrocities. But the deal is done, and the next target on the revenge list is Mindstorm. The hunt leads them to a psychic confrontation. Mindstorm attacks Butcher, not with his fists, but with his mind, trapping him in an endless nightmare, forcing him to relive his darkest traumas. Soldier Boy is ready to leave Butcher for dead, but Huey, refusing to be the scared kid he once was, does the unthinkable. He confronts the telepath alone and offers a deal to save his leader. Inside his own mind, Butcher is forced to confront life with his father and the death of his brother, Lenny, a guilt that haunts him for the rest of his life. He wakes up at the last second, just in time to see Soldier Boy smash Mindstorm's head in. But before he dies, the telepath delivers one last piece of information, a truth that changes everything. Vought didn't lose him to the Russians. They gave him up. They traded him for a newer, stronger model. Shocked and betrayed, Soldier Boy picks up the phone. He calls his replacement. He calls his greatest enemy. And then he reveals the truth that rewrites history. history and turns the hunt into something far more dangerous. Homelander is his son. The revelation that Soldier Boy is Homelander's father should have changed the game, but the board is already on fire. The final pieces move toward the inevitable showdown. Homelander finds Ryan and lures him to his side, promising the family he's always wanted. Maeve, in an act of pure fury, escapes her captivity in Vought Tower and reunites with the team for the final battle. Frenchie reveals the ace up their sleeve, Novichok, a Russian nerve agent powerful enough to take down a god. But the alliances are crumbling from within. Butcher discovers that temp fee is a death sentence, but he hides the fatal truth from Huey. In the tower, Homelander confronts Black Noir, who has finally returned. Upon learning that Noir always knew the truth about his origin and let him live a lie, Homelander rips out the last piece of his past, killing his most loyal companion in cold blood. It's the point of no return. The final confrontation explodes in Vought Tower. Father and son face each other, but there are no hugs. Soldier Boy rejects Homelander as a disappointment and attacks him. Ryan, seeing his father in danger, uses his powers against his grandfather. In an instant, Soldier Boy's fury turns on the child, and in that moment, Butcher makes his choice. He betrays Soldier Boy to protect Becca's son. The promise he made to her is worth more than his revenge. The battle is absolute. Maeve against Homelander, Mother's Milk, Kimiko, and Starlight against the human weapon, Soldier Boy. Just as he's about to unleash a blast that would annihilate everyone, Soldier Boy is stopped. In a final sacrifice, Maeve tackles him and throws herself out the window with him, absorbing the blast and becoming the hero she was always meant to be. In the aftermath, victory tastes bitter. Butcher learns he has months to live. A powerless Maeve finally finds peace. Annie throws away her suit and officially joins the boys. And in the shadows, Victoria Newman is announced as a vice presidential candidate. The war is far from over. In the final scene, Homelander introduces Ryan to a crowd of fanatical supporters. When a protester throws something at the boy, the hero doesn't hesitate. He takes care of him, right in front of everyone, and the crowd goes wild. They cheer. Amidst the screams of adoration, Ryan looks at his father and smiles. The monster wasn't defeated. He just created another one. While Huey becomes a ghost in the system, Butcher, clearly a man at his limit, prepares for the attack. The problem? Homelander decides to show up uninvited with Ryan in tow, turning the mission into a powder keg. Butcher attempts a final desperate act, cornering Ryan to convince him to run, but Homelander interrupts and with a cruel smile drops the final bombshell. He knows Butcher is dying. The tables turn. The plan implodes when Newman's daughter Zoe reveals her powers and turns the place into a slaughterhouse. Amid the chaos, Annie becomes a guardian angel, weaving a net of light to save Frenchie and Kimiko from a deadly 8-story fall. The confrontation is now face-to-face, Huey versus Newman, and she offers a deal that's pure blackmail, mutually assured destruction. If they expose her, she will burn their world to the ground. Back at the base with Mallory, the order is clear. Newman is the target. MM, taking the lead, makes the toughest call. Butcher is out, but little did they know, Butcher already had a plan B, meeting an old ghost from the CIA, Joe Kessler, who whispers in his ear, Mallory is aiming at the wrong target. The real monster is still Homelander. Meanwhile, in 7 Tower, Homelander's boredom is broken by the arrival of a new piece on the board, Sister Sage, the smartest person in the world. His question is simple: how does he become an immortal god? Her answer is terrifyingly brilliant. Don't fight the system. Let the masses destroy it for you and then rise from the ashes as the one true savior. Huey's personal tragedy deepens with his father's stroke, and in a desperate move, Butcher plays his last card. He offers Newman Ryan's head in exchange for the files that could destroy her. Following his ex's new boyfriend's trail, MM and the team stumble upon a secret rally where they witness Homelander forcing the Deep and A-Train to brutally beat 3 of their own fans. Sage's plan goes into action. Homelander is declared innocent. A riot is orchestrated to frame Starlight's supporters. Violence erupts. In the middle of the chaos, Ryan makes a confession to Homelander that changes everything. He doesn't want Butcher to die. Tormented, a vision of Becca haunts Butcher, a plea to save their son. But how do you save someone without destroying yourself in the process? Sage's plan didn't just work, it was a knockout. Starlight's supporters are now terrorists in the public eye, and Homelander's power is nearly absolute. Inside the 7, the new order is clear. A-Train is forced to film a fabricated biopic, and the actor playing the new Black Noir complains that his character is a joke. For Huey, his personal hell gets a new chapter with the arrival of his mother Daphne, who has the power to decide his father's fate. After discovering Butcher's terminal illness, MM's decision is final. He's a liability, and he is officially kicked off the team. At Vought, Sage's genius continues to shape the future, turning Ryan into a chosen one and subtly diminishing Homelander's importance, sowing the seeds of discord. Empowered, the Deep finally confronts a powerless Ashley. The boy's next target is Sage, but the team is split on how to proceed. Frenchie, and Kimiko follow her to a conspiracy theory convention, a den of lies where another soup, Firecracker, poisons the public against Starlight. It is there that Frenchie's past comes back to haunt him in the form of a familiar face. Meanwhile, Annie and Huey witness A-Train being confronted by his own brother about the sham his life has become. Sage, always one step ahead, offers Firecracker a spot in the 7 on one condition: eliminate MM's team. The ambush is brutal, and in the middle of the fight, the tension between MM and Butcher finally explodes into a physical confrontation, unleashing months of rage and frustration. But a light emerges in the darkness. In an act of redemption, A-Train gives Annie the footage that proves her fans' innocence. Ryan's first rescue, a Vought staged event, turns to tragedy when he accidentally kills a stuntman. Homelander's reaction is ice cold, teaching the horrified boy a terrible lesson: humans are just toys. Inspired by Huey, Annie puts on the suit again. Starlight is reborn, but for Butcher, the night ends in total defeat. Humiliated and without allies, he knocks on the only door left to him, MM's, begging for help to save Ryan, and watches it get slammed in his face. Is the game over for him? With the team in shambles and Butcher on the ropes, Homelander and Sage waste no time. They present the world with the new, lethal lineup of the 7. Desperate, Butcher goes to Kessler with a risky plan: kidnap and deprogram Ryan. But Kessler's warning is crystal clear: if the boy can't be controlled, he'll have to be eliminated. On the political chessboard, Newman is cornered, pressured to support a law that could destroy her plans for power. Far from it all, Kimiko begins a personal hunt for the ghosts of her past, with Frenchie, loyal to the end, by her side. MM's team remains divided. He wants to use A-Train as a spy, but Huey knows the truth. Without Butcher's brutality, they don't stand a chance. Butcher manages to lure Ryan into a trap, ready to drug him, but at the last second, he hesitates. The trap turns into a confession, and for the first time, the two truly connect.
"'Cause I'm a bad man. I ain't got no business going after a kid."
Meanwhile, Sage sniffs out a traitor inside the tower, and to protect A-Train, Homelander's silence is the only witness, literally. Across town, Annie confronts Firecracker, only to discover that her hatred stems from an old children's beauty pageant, a promise to destroy her life completely. The trap is set. A-Train sends MM and Huey to what appears to be a secret meeting between Newman and Homelander. In hiding, Huey overhears the final plan, the move that could break the world: Newman for president with absolute power for Soups. When Homelander discovers him, the end seems certain, but in a blur of speed, A-Train intervenes, saving Huey and finally choosing a side. While Frenchie is tortured by hallucinations of his crimes, Huey and his mother find peace, with her revealing the truth behind her abandonment. But the calm is short-lived. Kessler delivers the CIA's ultimatum to Butcher: turn Ryan into a weapon against his father, or he becomes a target. Rejected by his own son, Homelander's mind shatters. He doesn't seek revenge. He seeks the source of his pain, returning to the lab where the monster was made, the monster's cradle. Homelander returns to the Vought lab with an ice cream cake, a reunion that quickly devolves into a horror show. He belittles the technicians before finally confronting the woman who created him. Far away, Huey's world collapses. His father is brain dead, and his estranged mother holds the power to pull the plug. In a bold political move, Annie January, as Starlight, offers her support to the president-elect in exchange for a promise of blood, the total destruction of Vought. The team reunites, with Butcher back in the fold, and their sights are set on Homelander's new weapons, Sage and Firecracker. Sage's strategy is an information war, with Firecracker leading a media assault against Starlight. The boys find some old dirt to blackmail her, but the move backfires. Firecracker not only confesses her crime on air, turning it into a redemption story, but she also counterattacks, leaking Annie's medical records and revealing her abortion to the world. The bait works. Annie loses control and attacks Firecracker on national television. Checkmate. Sage doesn't play to win. She plays to annihilate. On a side mission, Huey asks A-Train for a dose of Compound V to save his father. They are attacked, but Kimiko arrives like a hurricane, settling the score with one of her old torturers. In the midst of the pandemonium, Frenchie's past kidnaps him in the form of Colin, who reveals a devastating truth. Frenchie murdered his family years ago. Devastated, Huey returns to the hospital and finds a miracle. His mother has already injected his father with V, and he awakens. But the darkest revelation was yet to come. Butcher confesses to Huey. He also used temporary V, and the compound didn't cure him. It only sped up the end. The miracle was short-lived, and hell came to collect its due. The compound V that saved Huey's father also destroyed his mind, turning him into a creature with unstable powers who attacks his own family. In a desperate chase, Huey gets one final moment of lucidity with his father before making the most agonizing decision of his life. Together with his mother, he administers an overdose, putting an end to the suffering. With the team in shock, Butcher reveals his ace up his sleeve, a virus, a biological weapon developed at Godolphin University, capable of killing soups. The only problem? Victoria Newman stole the only sample. To retrieve it, they make a deal with the devil, breaking Stan Edgar out of prison to lead them to her. Mortal enemies forged in a fragile alliance, with a single objective. The hunt leads them to a farm infested with livestock turned into deadly predators by Compound V. Meanwhile, at Vaught's V52 Expo, the new Black Noir advises A-Train to embrace violence, and Ryan, in an act of rebellion, refuses to follow the script, to Homelander's pride. At the farm, chaos reigns, and the scientist guarding the virus disappears. The mission is a failure. The alliance explodes in mistrust, or so everyone thought. Far from everything and everyone, the truth is revealed. Butcher didn't lose the scientist. He captured him, and now, with the biological weapon in hand, he is ready to rewrite the rules of the game, alone. In the darkest corners of the city, Butcher and his contact, Joe Kessler, aren't looking for justice. They're looking for a weapon. Samir, the scientist, is the key, and torture is the way to turn it to recreate the virus that can change the game forever. Far away, Huey tries to escape his demons in Paris, scattering his father's ashes. But pain doesn't need a passport, and it consumes him from within. Little did he know, he was about to be dragged back into an even worse hell. The team discovers the unthinkable. Homelander and Sage, the mind behind the monster, are cooking up something big, and the stage is Tech Knight's extravagant mansion. The mission? Infiltration. The bait? Huey, disguised as Webweaver, a pathetic junkie soup, tasked with planting bugs and getting out unnoticed. The plan was risky, but what followed was an instant disaster. Huey's disguise lasted shorter than an Instagram story. Tech Knight's bizarrely sharp senses sniffed him out in the middle of the crowd, and the party was over. Dragged into an underground chamber, Huey becomes Tech Knight and Ashley's plaything in a grotesque spectacle of humiliation. But while he bled underground, the real threat was being revealed upstairs. Newman and Sage were presenting their project to the country's corrupt elite, a coup. The plan was simple and terrifying. Overthrow President Singer, install Newman as a puppet in power, and use Tech Knight's private prisons as concentration camps for anyone who dared to disagree.
Talking about saving this country.
The boys' rescue mission was pure chaos. Annie, trying to fix the past, confronts Firecracker with an apology, only for her words to be used as the perfect excuse for a brutal attack. MM, in a flash of genius, neutralizes the strategist, Sage, but the price is high. The stress throws him into a paralyzing panic attack. Before the butler, Elijah, silences Tech Knight for good, they tear the truth about the camps from him. Mission accomplished. They escape. But the victory was an illusion. Back at the hideout, the final truth drops like an atomic bomb. Samir reveals the virus's secret. To be strong enough to kill Homelander, it would need to become airborne, contagious. A plague that would not only annihilate the target, but all soups on the planet. Ryan, Annie, Kimiko, all in the line of fire. And then, the final knockout. The plot twist no one saw coming. Joe Kessler, Butcher's dark mentor, doesn't exist. He's a hallucination, a ghost born from Butcher's brain tumor, fueled by Compound V. Butcher's true enemy was always in his head. The revelation that Kessler was a ghost in Butcher's mind was still echoing when reality kicked the door in. Homelander found a bug. His fury turns on Sage, who, with chilling coldness, ignores him, keeping her focus on the coup. Suspicious and paranoid, Homelander unleashes his own hound. Firecracker is tasked with finding the rat off the books. Meanwhile, Butcher's bombshell finally drops on the boys. He doesn't reveal a plan. He confesses a sin, the virus project with Dr. Shaw held captive. The idea of a soup genocide splits the team in two. To make matters worse, Frenchie is dragged back to perfect the doomsday weapon. Overwhelmed, Mother's Milk throws in the towel on leadership, handing the burden back to a Butcher who seems to embrace the darkness. The team was broken. The hunt for Newman's shooter leads Huey and Annie to a blood-chilling discovery. The killer is a shapeshifter. Protecting President Singer has become a near impossible mission. At the same time, Mother's Milk faces his own impossible battle, convincing his family to flee the country. But when the time comes, virus. He can't turn his back. Duty chains him to the fight. In a rare moment of peace amid the war, Kimiko opens her heart to Frenchie, revealing a dark trauma from her time with the Shining Light, forging an even stronger bond between them. But the calm is a lie. The Deep's personal life implodes in the most bizarre way possible when his octopus lover, Ambrosius, confronts him about his affair with Sage. The fight ends in a pathetic tragedy. In his rage, Deep smashes the aquarium, leaving Ambrosius out of the water. And who was watching from the shadows? Homelander. Now, he doesn't have an ally. He has a broken, loyal Deep completely under his thumb. The attack on the boys' hideout comes fast and hard. The Deep and the new Black Noir breach the hideout, but they're intercepted by a blue blur. A-Train, the fastest man alive, reveals himself as the true informant before vanishing, leaving behind a trail of chaos and confusion. At the top of Vought Tower, Homelander's charade crumbles. He discovers that Sage knew about A-Train all along, using him to leak disinformation and manipulate Homelander himself. Blinded by the fury of being used, he fires her, but the boys' downward spiral was far from over. Dr. Shaw attempts a desperate escape, and in the process, injects Kimiko with the unstable virus. She becomes a walking biological weapon, a human time bomb. Shaw dies, leaving behind a functional virus, but one still too weak to take down the king. In the midst of this hell, a single ray of hope emerges when Ryan rejects Vought's brainwashing. For a second, Butcher sees the light. 1 second, because right after he's ambushed, captured, and dragged into the darkness. January 6th, the day America held its breath. As Butcher wastes away in a hospital bed, haunted by the ghost of himself urging him to embrace genocide, his team races against the clock to stop an assassination. The plan was already insane, but it becomes a nightmare when they discover the threat is already inside. Annie has been replaced by the shapeshifter, who takes audacity to a new level by proposing to Huey. The real Annie, however, is no damsel in distress. She escapes her captivity and engages in a brutal confrontation with her copy in the presidential bunker. The fight for the soul of the nation came down to 2 starlights, and the original emerges victorious, thwarting the attack at the last second. In parallel, Mallory and Butcher play their last card, trying to turn Ryan against his father. It backfires spectacularly. Mallory exposes Homelander's filthiest secrets, including the truth about Becca's death, but Ryan sees through the manipulation. He realizes they don't want to save him, they want to use him as a weapon. They wanted a soldier, but they created a rebel. Ryan rebels and flees, leaving everyone empty-handed. With the assassination attempt failed, Homelander changes the board. Live on TV, he reveals that Victoria Newman is a soup and begins a bloody purge at Vought, eliminating anyone who could be a threat. Cornered and exposed, Newman does the unthinkable. She calls Huey, offering to surrender in exchange for her daughter's safety. In an act of faith, or naivety, Huey argues for mercy and convinces the team to accept, keeping a dart with the virus as a life insurance policy. The meeting is set. Peace seemed possible, but it was a trap, just not Newman's trap. Out of nowhere, Butcher appears, fueled by a temporary dose of Compound V and pure hatred. He doesn't negotiate. He doesn't hesitate. He executes Newman in cold blood. He then steals the refined virus and abandons his friends, declaring a new war. His war against all soups. And then the final curtain is pulled back, revealing the true masterpiece of manipulation. Sage was never fired. Every event, every betrayal, every death was orchestrated by her. President Singer is framed for Newman's murder. A new president, a puppet, takes power, declares martial law, and gives Homelander total control of a national soup army. Checkmate. The coup was a complete success. As Homelander's forces launch their final hunt for their enemies, Calhoun takes him to a secret location, where Homelander discovers that Soldier Boy is alive and imprisoned. The game isn't over yet.